Questions to the Cabinet members?
Paragraph 6, public health.
Oh, sorry, public health integration. I do apologise. Is that approved? Thank you. Questions to the Cabinet members will now be taken until the 45-minute continuous period for questions and answers has ended. So, question number 12, Councillor Boswell.
Question number 12 to the Cabinet member, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank the member for the question. I'm delighted to answer this question. I'm very surprised that despite the fact that it's been in our minutes, or it's been in the progress report at the last two meetings of the Education and Children's Services Committee, the lead member on the Labour side still needed to have clarification of this point. I'm also surprised that she hadn't noticed that, in fact, the Bolingbroke Academy was working very successfully from its new site, and that the Teachers' Training Centre had moved from the professional centre into the premises that were being used by the Arc Academy prior to moving into their new site. But I am absolutely delighted to say yet again to this chamber that the Arc Academy not only opened on time in September, but they did successfully move into their site in Bolingbroke Grove just after Christmas.
Supplemental, Mr. Mayor.
I thank the Cabinet member for her answer. I must say that I live quite near the Bolingbroke Academy, and it would be quite easy for one to think that it wasn't open, as it is so covered in scaffolding and asbestos sheets and all sorts of things, that it would be quite easy to not think there was a school in there. Anyway, I would like to ask about the Putney Free School on the hospital site, and perhaps the Cabinet member could update us on progress of that free school, because I believe there have been lots of hold-ups around planning.
Thank the member for a supplementary. I have no intention of going completely off script and answering a question on the other issue, which isn't down here. But I'm delighted that as a nearby resident to the Arc Academy site, that she hasn't noticed the beautifully presented and well-behaved pupils that are on site.
Supplemental question.
Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In coming to my question to the Cabinet member, and as the LA appointed governor of the Bolingbroke Academy, can I just highlight some of the successful startup? It is now the first preference applications for September 13, making it the third most popular school in the borough. The first year intake includes 32% of children registered for free school meals, and 100% of parents who contributed to Ofsted's parent view, saying they would recommend the Bolingbroke Academy to other parents. The DFE's initial monitoring report stated the school is functioning well. Does the Cabinet member agree that the Bolingbroke Academy is establishing itself well as a secondary school that the borough and Arc can be proud of?
Ladies and gentlemen, the question did eventually get asked, so let's have the answer.
I thank the member for the question, and we are very proud to have the Bolingbroke Academy in our family of schools, and it just shows how out of touch the Labour Party are to be trying to knock it in any way whatsoever when 100% of the parents that are there do think that it is the very best school for their child. So we are absolutely delighted with the progress that it's making.
Councillor Morritt.
Question 13 to the Cabinet member.
I thank Councillor Morritt for this excellent question. We are doing a lot on transport, in improving across the borough on all forms of transport, but there is, you're right, more that we can be doing, and I hope to bring more announcements to this chamber on all sorts of areas where we're doing even more.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Morritt.
Can I thank the Cabinet member for his response? And I'm not for a moment suggesting extra spend on communications, but within existing budgets, could I urge him to consider perhaps a special edition of Brightside or some such, so that that would not only refresh the format slightly, which I often think it's somewhat stale, but it would enable us to get this positive message he's touched on across to our residents.
I thank Councillor Morritt for his question and his suggestion. I think it's a very good one, and we'll look into that.
Councillor Jenny Cooper.
Well, it's good that Councillor Morritt, I suppose, can come to some meetings of the Council, but I just wondered if the Cabinet member is as surprised as me to see Councillor Morritt asking questions about local transport, when, according to him, all he ever does is use taxis.
Mr. Mayor, a point of order, and perhaps there's something that for you to raise with the opposition leader. It is perfectly ordinary, perfectly normal in the council chamber to get personal occasionally, but I do think that Councillor Cooper has taken it upon herself to be particularly personal towards Councillor Morritt, who remains a full member of this group without any stain on his character as far as this group is concerned. And if she wants to do tittle-tattle, I do think council chamber is not the place to do it because it's not dignified.
Thank you, Leader. And on that basis, we will move to question 14, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Leonie Cooper. It's not for me, it's for the Council.
Question 14 to the Cabinet Member.
I do thank the Councillor for the question. And what a curious question it is. Not for the first time on matters police, they've taken something out of context and tried to build an argument on a rather dodgy foundation. They got themselves in a terrible pickle over at Lavender Hill Police Station by misunderstanding what was going on, and look where that got them. And here we have the ridiculous spectacle of singling out a single word from a report which contains many hundreds, if not thousands, and trying to put forward a line on that basis, which really is completely ridiculous. But I do look forward to the impact of Councillor Cooper's new zero-tolerance approach to repetition of words on her own supplementary questions. The meaning of this response, I think, is very clear. Any fair-minded person can see that while we do have concerns, that word again, we broadly welcome it. There is much in here that's positive: the strengthening of neighbourhood policing, the more rational use of buildings, the much more flexible use of police resources in terms of structures across wards. All of that is hugely positive, and I would particularly single out the much greater integration of special constables with full powers across the borough. So we welcome that, and so it really is quite ridiculous to take one single word highlighting areas where I think we are quite right to say, hey, we want some more detail here, and present that as being the response to this, because that's just not in any way reasonable.
Leonie Cooper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Pulling out the word concerned was merely drawing attention to the fact that everybody in this council chamber on both sides is concerned about the outcome of this consultation. Would he agree that it is impossible to actually say that there will be more police in this borough without actually knowing how many PCSOs are going to be here? Numbers could go down.
I thank the councillor for the supplementary question. PCSOs, I think, again, with respect, you are confused, because it's perfectly clear what is happening with PCSOs. They are, to a very large extent, being replaced by police constables who have full powers, in contrast to PCSOs. And that, I think, is a good thing. Everybody welcomes that.
Councillor Ryder.
Question 15 to the Cabinet Member for Transport and Strategic Planning.
Yes, I thank Councillor Ryder for this excellent question. We've discussed many times Heathrow in this chamber, and I think we have actually one of the few things that we agree with, both cross-party support for no expansion. Heathrow, unfortunately, the government seems to have wavered in its determination not to expand Heathrow, but we will keep fighting a good fight in trying to prevent any further expansion.
Councillor Madden.
I thank Councillor Madden for that excellent supplementary. I think night flights are a terrible thing. Waking people up at 4:30 in the morning every morning is not the right thing to do in a modern society. I fully agree with let's try and end night flights as soon as possible from Heathrow.
Councillor Carpenter.
Second supplementary. Councillor Madden has shot my fox. I was about to ask exactly the same supplementary, but can we associate that at this side of the House with the attempt to get rid of the rest of the light flights? There are only 15 of them, and we should get rid of them.
I think that's a yes from everyone. Councillor Carpenter.
Mr. Mayor, question 16.
I thank the councillor for his question. As the answer sets out, essentially the Western Riverside Waste Authority ran out of reserves to keep on subsidising its precept, which shows the dangers of constantly subsidising something from reserves.
Supplementary?
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes. What surprised me was that we hadn't made budgetary provision for this, because we have members on that authority. We even provide the treasurer of that authority. So was the cabinet member asleep on the job when the budget came round?
Certainly not. And we, as you say, there are two members of this council and this authority, along with we provide both the clerk to the authority and the treasury to the authority. We had hoped to reach a solution on the particular problem that's caused the financial problems of Western Riverside, which was essentially the level of contamination. We'd expected that we'd be able to reduce the level of contamination in the recyclable waste. Unfortunately, it's proved that actually that level of contamination has not actually decreased, it's actually got worse. And the contractor concerned has got ever more strict on whether or not they'll accept contaminated waste. Hence the considerable increases in cost. However, as I indicated in my speech earlier on, after the last meeting with the authority, I do hope that the budget for the following year, we should be able to see some reasonable savings as a result of ongoing discussions with the contractor.
Councillor Dawson.
Question 17 to the Cabinet Member.
I thank the member for this question, and I am absolutely delighted to talk about the Youth Council. Those members that were at the committee who saw the presentation that the youngsters gave to committee couldn't have failed to have been impressed by them and by the work that they were doing. Can I take this opportunity? It is at the bottom of the question for members to read it about the we have a question time that they're putting on March the 21st, and also the CLIC meeting to discuss children in care. This is all part of youth participation, which members will know we've worked very hard on in the Council.
Councillor Hogg.
Question 18 to the Cabinet Member.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank Councillor Hogg for his question, and I'm pleased to inform him that one member of staff has been in place for 6 months and a further 4 members of staff are planned.
Supplementary.
Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we can all welcome these extra staff, and hopefully they can provide the sort of assistance we heard about in the members' welfare briefing to help residents negotiate with their landlords or to explain other options available to them. Does the Cabinet Member agree that these extra officers to reach out to residents are a wise investment when balanced against the costs and family pain of people presenting as homeless to the Council?
Mr. Mayor, I can't quite understand Councillor Hogg's question. Is he suggesting we should have no staff?
Can I have another go? Hiring these staff is a good idea. We heard about how a member of staff had gone in, someone had had their housing benefit cut, but they'd managed to talk to the landlord and come to an arrangement. I think this is a good idea. If we had more officers, it would save the Council money because fewer people would become homeless and have a call on the Council.
Mr. Mayor, that's precisely what we're doing.
Councillor Tom.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I just wonder if the Cabinet Member would agree with me that, in fact, these are very difficult problems, very difficult social issues, and would you not agree that what we're doing is extremely constructive and indeed being handled extremely sympathetically, and it might have been more helpful if Councillor Hogg had come up with some more original proposals?
I'd like to thank the councillor for his supplementary, and I do agree that clearly it is a difficult time for a lot of people, and certainly of those non-council tenants who've been spoken with so far by our staff, I think it's roughly a third of cases so far, the landlords have actually agreed not to increase their rents. So I think it is very encouraging, and another third have decided to remain in the property and just meet the increase out of their own pockets. So yes, clearly a lot of work is being done, and a lot of work will continue to be done.
Councillor Mrs Clay.
I thank the councillor for the question. There's a very full written answer here, but I did feel that we got our points across at the meeting as a council, but I was also impressed and proud that fellow residents covered the ground so thoroughly. There was much comment afterwards from those who had seen many of the other meetings that it was a very good showing from Wandsworth, and that people were obviously very much engaged with the issues, which I think just underlines one of the reasons why we're the safest in a London borough. We're determined to keep it that way, and my number one concern is that our numbers should be a fair representation of the challenges we face, and I think I got that across.
Supplementary, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mrs Clay.
Thank you. This is a consultation process run by the Mayor of London's Police and whatever it is, anyway, MOPAC. When will they finish the consultation and let us know their conclusions? And when can we expect changes to be implemented locally?
I thank the councillor for the supplementary question. Well, the consultation closes today, March the 6th, and implementation will start very soon. The first elements April, but right the way through until September. It won't be a sudden all on one day, so stretching over the next few months.
Councillor Thomas.
Does the Cabinet member recognise that whilst he might have expressed his full support and backing for the Mayor's plans, many residents are extremely concerned about what this is going to mean in terms of the number of local police that they see on their streets? And in light of that, can he commit to properly hold the Mayor accountable for how these plans go, with some robust scrutiny around what actually happens to police numbers?
I thank the councillor for the supplementary question. The first point, very important, I did not offer my full backing. That word again, concerns. I expressed very clearly the concerns, the worries, the threats, whatever you want to call them, about numbers. I couldn't have been clearer. Our Assembly member at the end of the meeting, and I was fortunate to kick off with the comments, the Assembly member Richard Tracy did the same at the end of the meeting. Nobody who heard me speak that evening or who has fully read our consultation response can be in any doubt that we do not, and I do not, offer my full backing. So I'd like to be very, very clear on that. But if I may also say so, I think the councillor, as many of his colleagues have done before him, got himself really rather confused. And he needs to get this absolutely straight when he's communicating with residents, because this plan will not mean fewer police on the streets. Quite the opposite. More police on the streets. The single most important feature of this plan is a huge shift of resources to neighbourhood policing, and that means more feet on the beat, and that I very much welcome, and I do give my full backing to that, and I'm sure that any resident who reads the full plan will be very reassured by that.
Councillor Speck.
Question 20 to the Cabinet member.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank Councillor Speck for her question. As outlined in the answer, I fully anticipate that the views of elderly residents in that area will be taken fully into account.
Councillor Ms Nadler.
Question 21 to the Cabinet member.
Having questions dotted about, you do have to stay awake. I am absolutely delighted with this question, and those that have visited Greenmead School would know exactly why it is outstanding. What was particularly pleasing about this is that the Ofsted inspectors actually called it splendidly outstanding, and I've never seen that in a report before.
Councillor Thomas.
Question 22 to the Cabinet Member.
I thank Councillor Thomas for his question. The answer is there. You'll see that we've fixed thousands and thousands and thousands of potholes, and I know that we'll be fixing thousands more in the next few weeks.
Councillor Thomas.
Given that there seem to be at least about 1,000 that are unfixed, what assurances can he give to the many residents who are complaining bitterly about these? And can he commit that if any resident reports a pothole to the council, that it will be fixed within a maximum of 4 weeks?
Yada, yada, yada. We hear this every time there's a cold spell in a winter spell and there's a frozen roads, which results in the breaking of the road service. We hear the same thing from Labour. We heard it in 2010, and as a result of 2000, we then, as we always do every year, that we get crews going around the borough fixing the potholes. We then had an election, and it wasn't that we got 47-13 because of gerrymandering, it's because we have the highest level of resident satisfaction in the country. That's why we have 47 councillors, and you've only got 13. And after 2014, you'll be in single numbers, if that. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Usher.
I thank Councillor Usher for her supplementary question. I will obviously not show any favouritism for any particular part of the borough, but as actually our answer shows, that we recognise that because of the cold conditions, that we need to put in extra money this year and next year, and we will be doing that. Thank you.
Councillor Locker.
Thank Councillor Locker for his question. I'd just like to add to the answer that Balham is very much a town centre that's on the up, and I hope he would associate himself with my remarks of thanks and gratitude to the sterling work that has been put in by the town centre manager there and all the businesses who are involved in the town centre partnership.
Councillor Locker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I completely agree with the Cabinet Member's comments and wonder if he would pass on our thanks to the town centre manager for Balham. Could he also commit that we will continue to make the programme of community engagement and consulting with stakeholders that the town centre manager has done so well?
I'm more than happy to make that commitment. As I'm sure he's noticed, it hasn't always been received positively, but I think when we have exciting plans, that's the way it goes. But we're committed to making sure this serves Balham Town Centre as best as it can.
Councillor Carpenter.
Question 24 to the Cabinet Member.
I'd like to thank Councillor Carpenter for his question. I'm sure in his supplementary he will list all the empty properties that he's aware of, and we will make sure that they're leafleted and told that he would like to confiscate them from the owners.
Supplementary. I thank you very much for that.
You are going to come
and
back.
I will provide you with a list.
Councillor Jacob.
Question 25 to the Cabinet Member.
Oh, yes. I'm very grateful to Councillor Jacob for his question. It's not often that some things both amuse and amaze us in one go, but this was certainly one that did.
Councillor Gibbons.
Question number 26 to the Cabinet Member.
I thank the councillor for the question, and I'm absolutely delighted that we will be having 4 new free schools operating in the borough from September 2013. The Bolingbroke Academy that we talked about earlier, the new Tooting Primary School sponsored by the Graveney Trust, the Rutherford House Primary School, sponsored by Bellevue Place Group, and the South London Jewish Primary School.
Supplementary.
Councillor Gibbons.
Having ducked the question about Putney Free School in an earlier question about free schools, could the Cabinet member update us on the position with Putney Free School, what progress there is being made on getting this up and running, as we desperately need the places, and whether the Cabinet member on reflection thinks this is the most efficient way of providing new places?
I thank the Councillor for the question. The answer, I believe, is a bit odd, because actually the Putney School will be an academy school rather than a free school, and perhaps the Councillor doesn't understand that. But I do think that the free school method of new schools is proving, certainly in Wandsworth, because of our Education Commission, the way we've set it up, to be a very effective way of getting new schools to fulfil the need for extra places. The Putney Hospital site is still on stream to open in September 2015, which was the date that we're expecting, but that of course depends on the planning that we are reapplying for at the moment.
Second supplemental.
Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, one of the issues that many of the free schools do face is finding premises. And I was just wondering if the Cabinet member could update us at all on how both central government and London government are doing in finding and releasing premises for free schools, particularly in Wandsworth.
Interesting question, and I thank the member for the question. The government, of course, provided the Balham Youth Court, which is where the Rutherford House Primary School is going. I'm not sure if the government are even they know of their properties quite as well as the GLA, because the GLA are certainly working very hard to identify premises and to release them, and we hope to have a list made public very shortly. I haven't seen how many might be in Wandsworth, but I do understand that across London they are releasing quite a few premises.
Well, can I just express my gratitude and surprise that we've got through all the table questions, so everyone's happy.